In the 40 years of Dragon Ball content, there's been quite the line of iconic villains. Some from long ago, and some from very recently. I made a video a while ago about the moral ethicality of the Dragon Ball villains from Dragon Ball Z, but now it's time for Dragon Ball Super. The goal of this video is to peer into the true intentions of every major villain in the Dragon Ball Super franchise, and rank their aspirations on a tier list to determine who is the most and least morally ethical villain in the series. Of course, not every villain's going to be included. For example, there were like 100 characters from the Tournament of Power that nobody really cares about, so we're sticking to the big hitters. I also want to make it clear that this video has nothing to do with power scaling. Just wanted to make that clear now before someone sees the tier list and gets heated. Let's begin by breaking down the tier list. S tier will be our highest tier. It doesn't matter what walk of life you come from, you will always see what these guys did as justifiable. You would do the same exact thing if you were in their shoes. They were only seen as, quote, villains due to the scenario the Z Fighters were currently under. Next up is A tier. These guys have their moral hangups, and you can completely understand what led to these guys becoming evil in the eyes of the Earthlings. But was it really their fault? Probably not. A tier is sort of the misdemeanor of this tier list. Next up is C tier, because I don't really see a purpose in B tier for this scenario. And there's no way around it. These guys are clearly villains, but they're not monsters. Maybe they weren't so bad before they were sent on the wrong path, but who knows. One tier down is D tier, and yeah, these guys are pretty horrible. Just one minor redeeming quality away from getting thrown into F tier. I wouldn't really recommend trying to side with anyone in this tier unless you want to be cancelled. And finally, we end with the F tier. These guys are the Dragon Ball equivalent to the Antichrist. Absolutely zero redeeming qualities. Life has the same weight as dirt in the eyes of these monsters. And that is the breakdown of the tier list. We're going to cover these villains chronologically, so of course we start with Lord Beerus from the God of Destruction saga. A lot of people don't understand that it was literally Beerus' entire job to be not morally ethical. The Gods of Destruction were part of the universe to keep the creators, or the Kais, in check so one side wouldn't take over the other. But that's not going to be a complete shield for old Beerus. Even compared to the other Gods of Destruction, he's quite arrogant. He does have a lot of habits that dock him points here, such as literally destroying any planet that doesn't have food he enjoys, which is crazy because taste is subjective. He also was quite pompous, and made examples out of anyone that made him even slightly angry, such as King Vegeta. I mean, he was the guy that pushed Vegeta in the direction of utilizing his ego to climb to new levels of power, which is a form of selfishness. This action sort of highlights what kind of a guy Beerus is. But Beerus does have a major advantage on this list that none of the other villains really have, that being character development. As a character that's in the story for the majority of the Dragon Ball Super franchise, we were able to see much more about this character, especially recently in the Broly movie, where he's literally babysitting for Bulma and Vegeta, a task that the God of Destruction saga Beerus would never be seen doing. We can also add training the Saiyans to his ethicality positives. So with everything about Beerus in mind, I think we could safely put him in A tier. Next up is the Resurrection F saga, so of course we're going to be talking about Frieza. Which sort of also means that we're talking about the Broly movies, since I do want to include the Dragon Ball Super movies in this video. Now, I did cover Frieza in my original Dragon Ball Z video, but the Broly movie actually opens up a lot of things to talk about. The previous video had some great points, so I'm just going to highlight two of them here. One, it's definitely not confirmed, but I'm like 90% sure that the Frost Demon race is just canonically evil from birth. I mean, Frieza aside, who do we have to compare him with? King Cold, his father, who's probably equally evil, Cooler, who's evil but surprisingly probably the least evil of the Frost Demons, and Chilled from the episode of Bardock movie. And I don't even have to say anything about him. Even looking into Frost, who's from an entirely different universe by the way, he's still evil, so yeah, Frost Demon probably equals evil. 2, he was completely brought into this planet reselling thing by his father, King Cold. So who really knows about how different Frieza could have turned out if he didn't have his father in his life. But now with the Broly movie, we have a little bit more wiggle room into the life of the Frieza Force, and it's kinda nice. With everything about the guy aside, he actually seems like a half-decent boss. The Frieza Force members have a cafeteria, private sleeping quarters, and on-ship healthcare? Wait a minute, why are they living better than half the people I know? I wouldn't doubt it if they had 401k set up too. Another thing to touch on is Frieza's role in the Tournament of Power. Here, we can clearly see the distance Toei Animation wants to make from Frieza being purely an evil space warlord, which is entirely different from Dragon Ball Z's Frieza. This is shown by Frieza finally being able to reconcile with the Saiyans for the survival of Universe 7. And yeah, his intentions in Resurrection F were definitely not pure in the slightest, but put yourself in his shoes, which probably isn't possible, but still. If some guys came and killed you, wouldn't your first instinct be to hunt them down and kill them too? I thought so. So with all this in mind, Frieza seems like a great candidate for C tier. We now move on to the Universe 6 saga. We're going to cover 3 people here. The first being someone I previously discussed, Frost. And there's honestly not a lot to talk about with Frost, other than him being just a complete scumbag. He's a guy that cosplayed as a courageous hero that defended the universe against evil, but it turns out that he was the evil the entire time. He's in the same exact profession as Frieza, except he weasels his way around any real legal confrontation. He uses deception, betrayal, cheating, basically anything to get his way, no matter who really pays for it. I was thinking about throwing Frost in F tier, but compared to the other people there, he's just such a small-time criminal. It's like comparing a small-time bank robber to a crypto scammer that just stole $10 million from a retirement home. So for that reason, Frost is going to go in D tier. The next person from this saga we're going to be talking about is of course Hit, the strongest person from Universe 6. And for Hit, we can sort of use the same exact mentality from Beerus, except he actually sticks to his job description. Yeah, he's an assassin, which really isn't the most morally ethical line of work, but he might be the most ethical and professional assassin of all of anime history. He sticks to his hit list, there's no additional casualties, and nobody even knows that he's there. This is the field of work he's in because he's good at it. If your child was good with computers, he would go into computer science. If your child was good at cooking, he would go into culinary arts. Hit was good at killing, so he picked the best option for that kind of skill. That being taking out corrupt and evil figures in the universe. Another thing about Hit is that he has very clear lines about who's an enemy. During the conflicts with Goku, he never actually plans on killing the Saiyan, because Goku clearly has a trustworthy personality, and Hit's able to pick up on that during the match. So, I'm surprisingly making Hit the first official S tier Dragon Ball Super villain. Although I could definitely see the argument to make him an A tier, I just don't really want to go on the hit list. The last one covered here is going to be pretty short, but this is Champa, the God of Destruction from Universe 6. Being the twin of Beerus, there's a lot of overlap, but I do think that Beerus does have more redeeming qualities than Champa. He really just seems like a fat, slightly more greedy Beerus, so for that, I'm going to put him in high C tier. Next up is the diabolical Future Trunks saga, and this saga brings two very heavy hitters to the plate. Well, it's kind of just one person, but there is a purpose in splitting these two people up. This is Goku Black and Zamasu. We're going to first cover all the similarities of the two characters and then branch them off at the end. So for now, I'm just going to refer to the two as Zamasu, and he is absolutely diabolical. If you thought the guy with the Zero Mortals plan is going to be high on this tier list, then I'd recommend flipping your monitor 180 degrees, because clearly it's in the wrong direction. I'm not really sure if I could use the Jenna side word on this video because all the stuff going on in the world right now, but yeah, that's basically 90% of Zamasu's character development. And you can't even blame his upbringing for this horrible mindset. Gowasu honestly seemed like one of the nicest gods we've ever seen in the series, so Zamasu's horrible personality is completely organic. This was clearly shown when Zamasu and Gowasu go back in time to watch those weird dinosaur humanoid guys. They did absolutely nothing to Zamasu, yet his first instinct was to say, wow, these guys live a disgusting life and we should end them all and put them all out of their misery. The point of this part of the saga was to show that Zamasu was everything that Gowasu isn't. In these cavemen, Gowasu sees potential, growth, and meaning, while Zamasu sees failure, waste, and reforming. So that's Zamasu. And Goku Black is exactly the same guy, except for one thing. Black actually enjoys the extermination of the mortals, while Zamasu does it solely because it's his calling. This could be due to the battle-hungry nature of the Saiyans, especially since he was using the body of Goku, who fought in countless battles in the past. So for that reason, both these guys are clearly F-tier candidates, but I'm going to put Goku Black one spot lower on the list than Zamasu. But there's just one more person that needs to go on the tier list here. Fuse Zamasu. Just hear me out. In Dragon Ball, fusion basically multiplies the power level of both people using it by an unspecified amount. So it's safe to say that the evilness of Zamasu and Goku Black is also getting the same multiplier. So just for funsies, Fuse Zamasu is getting his own tier on this list. And yes, this research is bulletproof. Alright, it's time for the Tournament of Power saga. There's way too many villains in the saga, if you can even call them that, so we're just going to be covering 3 people here. The first is of course the main antagonist of the saga, Jiren the Grey. And if it wasn't already clear enough, Jiren was never really supposed to be the villain. Jiren was clearly just fighting for the survival of all the people in Universe 11. And I have no doubt in my mind that if Jiren won the tournament, he would have the exact same wish as Android 17. Actually, I'm pretty sure he did this in the Sparking Zero alternate timeline path. The only flaw about Jiren's character is that 1, he entirely believes that strength is the solution to any problem he will ever encounter. And 2, he doesn't believe in trusting others, because they will let him down when it matters most. And after the finale of the tournament, he understands he's wrong about both these mindsets, and becomes a better person after witnessing the brilliant teamwork of Universe 7. Although he did have the strength to stop any of them individually, it was the combined efforts of Universe 7 that led to his demise in the tournament. So I think it's safe to say that Jiren's another great candidate for S tier. But there's another Pride Trooper that's not necessarily in the same boat. This is Toppo. He starts off as the definition of a hero, one of the chosen Pride Troopers battling for the survival of Universe 11, similar to Jiren. But what docks Toppo some points is how he battles during the tournament. His personality and morals totally shift during the battle with Super Saiyan Blue Evolution Vegeta. Here, Toppo completely abandons his hero persona to obtain the power to defeat Universe 7. He's totally aware that he's compromising his ideals, yet does it anyways since he realizes that this is the only way to battle Vegeta. But this moral collapse isn't just solely for power. You gotta remember the stakes of the tournament. He's throwing all of his morals away for the sake of everyone he knows and loves in the universe, which is quite the heroic thing to do. So while I don't personally believe Toppo should go into S tier, he is morally ethical enough to go into A tier. The last person I'll be covering here is sort of a random pick, but I thought it makes sense for this video. This is Sidra from Universe 9. Originally, I wanted to clump all the rest of the Gods of Destruction into one single tier, but that's just not possible, since we don't know a lot of lore about 90% of them. So I chose one that we know a little bit more about, Sidra, and he's quite the scumbag. From cheating in the pre-tournament by giving his soldiers a Hakai to use on Universe 7, to almost recruiting Frieza to the Universe 9 lineup, his scumbaggery knows no bounds. For everything we know about the Gods of Destruction, he kinda seems like the most morally unethical god. Although he's not nearly as bad as some people on the list, he's gonna go in C tier. Next up is the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie. We already covered Frieza before, so we're gonna be moving straight into Broly. And in reality, nothing this guy does is really his fault. He was born into power, and the Saiyans were terrified of this, so he was forced to get in a space pod and fend for himself with little to no resources or guidance on a deserted planet with nobody to talk to. Yeah, there was Paragus, but I'm gonna cover him right after Broly, don't you worry. On planet Vampa, he had zero understanding of morals or society. He was basically used as an attack dog to keep Paragus alive on this terrifying planet. All the violence and fighting shown in the movie is justifiable. Broly didn't want to fight, he had to fight. Whether it was from the orders of Paragus or Frieza, he was just being ordered around regardless. When Broly's calm, he's the nicest guy on the planet, which is shown in the Frieza spaceship scenes with Chilai and Limo. He never really seeked out the power that he has, it was just with him his entire life. Even without any sort of social interaction, he was shown defending Chilai from Goku at the end of the movie. And that really shows you everything you have to know about Broly. His character development was a complete 180 from the diabolical Broly of Dragon Ball Z, so here, Broly's going into S tier. But Paragus is a completely different story. Although he's not quite as horrible as the Paragus from Dragon Ball Z, he's still quite the D-head. He's seen multiple times manipulating, emotionally abusing, and even torturing his own son. During the film, he weaponizes Broly's childhood trauma to make him a weapon that only he can use. He's fully aware of his own cruelty, and that's what really makes him a monster. But is he on the same level as Zamasu? Probably not. So Paragus makes a great contender for D tier. Alright, we're officially in the manga territory. But not for long, oh yeah. This is the Galactic Patrol Saga. I'm going to be covering two people here, because covering every galactic prisoner would be a complete waste of time. First up is of course Moro, the Planet Eater. And as you can tell by the name, he's probably not very high on the list, and you'd be right. Moro is one of my favorite Dragon Ball Super antagonists because he brings back that old Dragon Ball Z nostalgia feeling. That being an antagonist that just really cares about nothing, and has no morals. Just a monster that breaks shit, and sometimes that's all you really need. Moro doesn't have any justification to what he's doing, he just loves feeding on life, loves suffering, and loves getting stronger. He would literally absorb every planet in the universe with absolutely zero remorse if he was allowed to do it. The mortals, the gods, really anything in between, it doesn't matter to Moro. Why? Because he's Moro. Yeah, he's a pretty clear case of an F tier villain. Next up is Android 7-3. Honestly, I don't even know why I'm covering him. I guess I just didn't really want Moro to be lonely. But he is sort of a weird case. We really have no background info about the character to determine why he ever joined up with Sanbago's criminal organization. But he did, I guess. But I couldn't really help to notice that he seems totally out of place throughout the entire saga. For the most part, he's completely emotionless with no real ambitions or ideology, while for some reason he's a criminal. Maybe it's due to his completely busted ability of being able to copy his opponent's moves and techniques. Not really sure what kind of android he is, maybe he's similar to 17 or 18, or maybe he's fully autonomous like 16, but it really doesn't matter. In the end, he was used by Moro, which sort of makes me feel bad for the guy, so I think C tier is a solid place for him. And that takes us to the most current manga saga, the Granolah saga. And I'll be covering a few people here, first being Granolah. Being the last surviving member of the Ceruleans, he was kinda set up for failure. Granolah is a prime example of being set down the wrong path by misinformation, and being saved, I'm using that term very loosely here, by the Heaters. Granolah starts falling for the misinformation about planet Cereal being destroyed by the evil Saiyans, which is somewhat true, but the real culprits were the Heaters themselves the entire time. The whole hit on Cereal was commissioned by the Heaters, so the Saiyans weren't really at fault for the entire thing, and Granolah believed everything. So, using his strength, he did the only thing he really knew, killing, which turned him into a bounty hunter for the Heaters. The good thing about Granolah is that he does show remorse to the Saiyans once he finds out the truth, which shows that he's not really any sort of monster. He can actually show empathy and growth, which gets him pretty high in the tier list. He actually has a lot of similarities with Hit. I originally thought of putting Granolah in S tier, but he just doesn't really fit with the other S tiers. So thinking about it some more, Hit doesn't really fit there either, so I'm going to make the executive decision of putting both Granolah and Hit in A tier. Next up is Gas, who actually has a lot of similarities to Broly, except there's a pretty big difference here. That being that he actually loves what he does. Elec raised him to be a weapon, just like Paragus and Broly, but Gas loved violence. Unlike Broly, he knows his actions are wrong, but he just keeps doing it. It's very clear that Gas enjoys violence both before and after using the Dragon Balls to become the strongest in the universe. He was born evil and died evil, so there's not really much to elaborate on. He's gonna go in D tier. And last up is Elec, who's absolutely horrible. He's just a Frieza without any of the redeeming qualities. He manipulates and uses everyone he knows, even his own family. He sacrifices Gas's life knowing what will happen to him if he continues using the power that wasn't his to begin with. He has no ideology that doesn't involve sin, and shows loyalty to nobody. The only reason he showed loyalty to Frieza was for monetary value, so for that reason, I think Elec is one of the easiest F tiers in the video. Which leads us to the last movie included in the video, the superhero movie. First up is of course Cell Max, and this creature is an absolute demon. Maybe if Dr. Hedo actually had time to finish the android, this would be a completely different circumstance. But it's not. Cell Max was a complete troglodyte. He has absolutely no idea about what's going on whatsoever. His only goal is to destroy as much stuff as possible. In a way, he has a lot of similarities to Kid Buu, except he's somehow even stupider. Forget about Elec, this is the clearest F tier in the video. And I could do Dr. Hedo here, but let's be so real, he's not even a villain. He's just a contractor because his grandpa was in the Red Ribbon Army. So I'm just going to do the entire Red Ribbon Army as a single consciousness. Of course excluding Gamma 1 and 2, cause they're literally just heroes. The Red Ribbon Army could have completely bounced back after their humiliating loss against Goku, but did they learn from it? Absolutely not. They came back, debatably even worse than ever. They chose to repeat history, this time cosplaying as the good guys, and safe to say it didn't work out. They were motivated by greed and power once again, and targeting the Z Fighters was not the greatest plan to make this happen. So I'd give the Red Ribbon Army the same rank as I'd give the original Red Ribbon Army, a safety tier. And that is every Dragon Ball Super antagonist I'm going to cover in this video. On screen now is the final official tier list. The character on the left side of the tier list is the character closest to being promoted into the category above, and the character on the right is the closest to being demoted to the rank below. Therefore, the official most ethical Dragon Ball Super villain is Broly, and the runner-up is Jiren. On the other side of the spectrum, the least ethical Dragon Ball Super villain is Fuse Zamasu, and the runner-up is Goku Black. Of course, this is completely my opinion and my opinion only, so I would love to hear your hottest take that you would switch up on this list. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to drop a like and consider subscribing to the channel for more Dragon Ball content just like this. Alright, I'll see y'all in the next one.